It's a Wednesday edition of Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, and Sean Payton having a chat down there in New Orleans, where you're at, Mase, on Radio Row at the Super Bowl.
Actually, they're not calling it Radio Row anymore, Cease. They're calling it Media Row because we're seeing fewer radio stations down here and more digital operations and other media down here. So the term Radio Row is officially dead, believe it or not.
Wow. Digital stations showing up, huh?
Like us.
Yeah. I wish it was me too. I miss your musk, Mase.
Oh my gosh. I miss you, and it would have been nice because I could have used a little help today.
Oh, and tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a little bit infirm. Spent a decent chunk of the day in a doctor's office. So
okay.
But I'm here.
Yes, here.
I'm injured, not hurt. I'm injured. But I'm here.
But you're showing up, you're ready to go, ready to roll on this show where we talk about wide receiver being a must-have for the Broncos because he talked to Kay Adams. And if there's one thing we know about Sean Payton, he loves talking to Kay Adams. Kay Adams is his friend, and she gets stuff out of him that others do not because he likes to chat, and he likes to chat with his friend, Kay Adams.
That's a way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think he might have revealed some stuff today, Mase, in terms of priority lists for the Denver Broncos.
He might have revealed that you and I are correct in some of the things we've been saying.
I believe so, yes.
Because what were we talking about last week at the Shrine in the Senior Bowl? Doing the Chuck Woolery 2-2.
Running backs and tight ends, man. Running backs and tight ends.
Running backs and tight ends. And when he's taking a look at the roster and where it's lacking, let's put it this way. He's not really focused on wide receiver in the way that some people, including Kay Adams herself, was when she was quizzing Sean Payton. She had an idea what she thought was a must-have, and Sean Payton had some different thoughts. Let's play that exchange here from Sean Payton. I'll cue it up here real quick. Sean Payton talking about must-haves and needs as we look ahead to the forthcoming offseason. That's what Sean Payton had to say on Media Row today.
We do the evaluation of our team.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that is then to establish what we call musts, needs, and wants.
Must, needs, wants. Okay.
So who are our musts?
Your must, you need a veteran wide receiver. That's what I think. I'd like to see you.
I would say we need a joker.
You need a Reggie Bush.
An interior, and a joker now can be a tight end or a running back that has exceptional. We were spoiled here.
Yeah.
When you think about it, all right, you had Reggie, you had Jimmy Graham, Jeremy Shockey, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara. Those are interior, either tight ends or running backs.
Jokers.
That they have to be elite receivers that play tight end or running back. And then you get the matchups, and we had quite a few of them here because you're getting too high defense and you have to work the inside. And
so much right there in that one 55-second comment, Mase. So where would you like to begin? Because I think he revealed probably about 3 things for them this offseason.
Well, he went on a little bit, and he also said at wide receiver, quote, "I'd say we're stronger here than some would think," unquote. He talked about Devon Vele. He talked about Troy Franklin. He really talked a little bit about Marvin Mims Jr., what he liked about the progress he made. So let's put that out there right now. Sean Payton happier with the receivers than I think a lot of Broncos country is.
Yeah, and definitely excited about the future of those receivers, which might include A.T. Perry. We're only 4.5 minutes in, but I threw that in there for our crowd. But the receivers are better than people think, or they're excited about more than people think. But notice how he almost brings up tight end immediately. She brings up Reggie Bush, and he does talk about Reggie Bush, but he brings up tight end almost immediately, and he says the one word, Mase. I think this is the key word. This is the very big clue today. They must be elite receivers.
Yep.
So this takes a Caleb Johnson out from running back terms in terms of draft plan. It takes him out because he's a power back. It might bump up Ashton Genty. More on that later on our YouTube channel. Special guest for Andrew Mason. You can tease it if you'd like. But like we just heard Sean Payton tell us the truth. I don't think he's trying to play any sort of game. He wants elite receivers at tight end and running back.
He wants to give Bo Nix more pass catching weapons, more options. I mean, we talk about this offense when it's working. And, okay, who's the first option? The first option is the open option. Now, the key to making that work is having reliable components at every spot. And that's where the Broncos have fallen short. I mean, the offense was not as dynamic as people hoped it would be last year, in spite of the fact this team was near the top in pass block win rate, at the top in run block win rate, was not dynamic. So what was missing? You were missing an array of options that the best Sean Payton offenses have had. And I think, talking about tight ends, for example, as well, wanting pass catching tight ends. Okay. That means they don't necessarily need to be great blockers. I think if they're willing blockers, that's a key thing. But but when he talks about naming Jeremy Shockey and Jimmy Graham, respectfully to those guys, they weren't the best blockers. They were great in space.
Yes.
And kind of like last year, you had a huge quarterback need, and you were able to take the sixth quarterback off the board, and he ended up being pretty dadgum good. It's a good year to need running back. It's a good year to need tight end. I mean, we were talking about Luke Lachey down at the Shrine, and he might be available into day 3. And that's why we talk about the 2-2 draft. You get one level of talent early, you take another shot late. You've got a pretty good chance that you're going to find somebody helpful if you're going 2-2 at running back and tight end, that you're going to find an answer. I mean, Sean Payton certainly has experience with this, with an early receiver and a late receiver. Back in his first draft, it was his late receiver, Marcus Colston, who ended up being the keeper when he had his first Saints draft.
Yep. And if we go over tight ends, I'll just give you the Miami guy. Who was the tight end that we saw that wasn't a great blocker, but perhaps the best athletic profile? Because in my opinion, Mase, we may differ, but like Mason Taylor was okay at blocking. So you could say he had them. And Terrence Ferguson was the best tight end of the Senior Bowl. But who had the most athletic profile and didn't block real great?
Elijah Arroyo. Arroyo. Yep.
Does this bump him up based on Payton's own words? And I'm not saying like first round. We're not going to get crazy. We don't do that on this show. But like an Elijah Arroyo, now I go, okay, that's their skill set they're coveting. The athletic guy who's just like, I don't care if he can block. We'll work on that. He can catch.
Yeah. And if you're a willing blocker, that's all you need to be. We're not asking for, a devastating blocking here. You're looking for a willingness to get in there, and that's something you have to evaluate. And maybe you're not going to know all of that when you get him in there. I mean, you didn't really know all of that on Jimmy Graham, for example, back when you picked him. His football experience was not as deep as some others. He's also a basketball player, right?
Yeah. 1 year he had 17 catches in 1 year of college football.
Elijah Arroyo, if we want to kind of talk about his experience level, you know how many catches Elijah Arroyo had at the U before this past season? He had 11 catches from 21 through 23. In 23 games played, 11 catches. Got on radars this year by averaging just under 17 yards a catch, 7 touchdowns on 35 receptions. Really nice scoring threat. I mean, like you look at Elijah Arroyo and you can see red zone threat from him.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like he's a guy who's going to finish off some drives for you. He's going to make some plays down there. He gives you options. He creates problems. He creates matchup problems. And that's where you can learn something at the Senior Bowl. I mean, respectfully to Harold Fanning Jr., if you told me Fanning or Arroyo, I think I'd go with Arroyo right now.
Based on what Sean Payton said, Arroyo seems to fit the profile. And by the way, people I talk to around the league say Fannon's a fullback, but he's like Jonnu Smith or Delaney Walker. So, Fannon, whose stock is dropping after the Senior Bowl, you could get Arroyo in, let's say, the second or third, and then you could get Fannon in the fifth or sixth. I wouldn't mind that.
You think he falls that far? We were talking about him as a second rounder last week. I mean,
yep. He didn't do himself any favors down there.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Wasn't a good week for him.
Yeah, but Ferguson came up. Mason Taylor came up. There was tight ends that made moves over the course of those two All-Star games. I think Fannon either stayed put or fell a little bit.
And maybe some of those guys making moves, it's not just Harold Fannon maybe falling back a little bit, but guys moving past him. I mean, I think Arroyo moved past him, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
based on what I saw. And, Mason Taylor did. I mean, Terrence Ferguson, he can block, but he also looked like a dynamic pass catcher as well. Point being, I mean, you got options here. You got options who can help. And the thing is, being an all-round tight end is going to take some time, just because the nature of that position means you're not going to get everything down pat that first year. But can you get the pass catching aspect of it down? Can you become a weapon immediately? And then the rest of it, the run blocking, the pass pro, maybe that rounds into form over the next couple of years. I think you can find somebody who can immediately help you. Of course, I mean, the Broncos do need a lot of help in the pass catching game. I mean, I'm going to go through this in my season review and preview series when we come out of the Super Bowl here over the next couple of weeks. But once again, one of the least productive tight end groups in the NFL from a pass catching perspective for a second straight year. And that's why Sean Payton gets up there on the stage with Kay Adams before he goes off to play golf with Mickey Loomis, his BFF Saints GM, and says, hey, running back, tight end, joker. They need chess pieces. They need weapons. So let's go back to running back for a moment. I'm just going to preview what we're going to have tonight. I'm going to say we have Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy. And if you know what DVOA is, of course, that's a metric that adjusts for offense, defense, and special teams. It adjusts to the opponent. It's adjusted over average. And Aaron Schatz is not a pick a running back early type of guy, usually. Most analytics people are not pick running back early types of people. I mean, I keep arguing with you, Cease. Like, I'm more likely to go tight end in round one. And I certainly would not trade up for Ashton Jeanty in round one. But Aaron Schatz, and he said he had a conversation with ESPN's Mina Kimes about this when we were talking after the show. He's inclined to look more at Ashton Jeanty because the Broncos were so good at run blocking. We often talked about where they stood in the ESPN run block win rate, and yet so unproductive on the ground. In his eyes, someone like Jeanty coming in could fix that. And oh, by the way, to fit the Sean Payton profile, he's a good pass catcher as well.
Yeah, a pass catcher that can come in and conservatively get you 1,500 all-purpose yards as a rookie.
Kamara.
Yep, that's what you would be getting, and I wouldn't mind moving up if the Cowboys pass on him at 12. We're seeing various mock drafts out there, and as we talk about the Joker conversation and veteran wide receiver, we'll get to that just a little bit later, Mase. But super, super quick, does it change their opinion on Colston Loveland? Because Loveland is more Pat Freiermuth, and he's a big blocker and a good receiver. He's a Y, he's not an F. Basically what Sean said he's looking for is an elite pass catcher. That's an F tight end. That's just your receiving tight end. That's more Rojo than perhaps Colston Loveland. A lot of mocks currently, I believe Lance Zierlein's first mock had the Broncos taking Colston Loveland, the big body tight end from Michigan, but he's a Y. He's good at everything. Does that change maybe the outlook there in your eyes for the Broncos, maybe looking at more F guys than Y guys?
I think so. I mean, you say why, guys? It's funny. I'm like, we're talking about like how they're going to end. Or do they ask why when you're in a team meeting? You know, I've got no problem with why, guys. I like people who like to understand the why of an offense. But yeah, you're looking at the tight end in space. You're looking at the person who can move around. You can split him out wide. You can put him in the slot. I mean, maybe a good way to think of it is you are looking at a big slot type of guy.
Yeah.
Which certainly brings us into the conversation. I don't think Tyler Warren's going to be there, but certainly as a pass catcher, there's a reason why he's going to go early in the draft. But it does bring you into the conversation of Elijah Arroyo. If you go down the list, I mean, if you're talking about, let's say you're talking about two tight ends, two tight ends to operate in space. Is that going to be, Rivaldo Fairweather out of Auburn, perhaps? Someone who's long and lean, getting a little bit of a look at fullback, but long, lean, and very raw, but has some downfield skills, as we saw at the Shrine back a week and a half ago.
Yeah, you've got options. You've got options if you're the Denver Broncos, because you're looking for that joker, as Sean Payton told Kay Adams. But what, Mase, does this mean for Marvin Mims?
Ooh.
He was their joker. He did an okay job, and he was kind of like their have-to-be joker, hybrid joker, whatever you want to say. Like, he's not a real joker, but he did a really fine job in the role that they had for him. Call it a joker, call it whatever you want, but Marvin Mims got on the field because of all the skill that he has in that kind of joker-ish role, even though he's a wide receiver and not a tight end or a running back and not an inside player.
Yeah, he's a different type of player than Sean Payton has had before. And as he said later on in that conversation with Kay Adams, that he got better and better over the course of the year, and, quote, he's one of those elite players with the ball in his hands, unquote. In other words, get him the ball. Find ways to get him the ball. Find ways to give him opportunities. The thing with Marvin Mims Jr. also, and we saw how the confidence built the more he got the football. When he wasn't getting the football, it seemed like he was struggling a little bit, maybe a little bit in his own head from time to time. It can happen. You get frustrated when you're not being used. And then they started figuring it out, starting in that Kansas City game, getting him some running back snaps. And then bit by bit, they built on it. And now it's, okay, how many different ways can we get Marvin Mims Jr. the ball? And I think the way they're looking at Marvin Mims Jr. is you're talking total touches, not just offensive touches, but also special teams touches as well. How many touches are you getting him in the punt return game, for example? Like, I think with Marvin Mims Jr., you want to say, okay, can we get him between special teams and offense? Can we get him 10 opportunities a game? Because kickoff returns, I'm not really thinking about, because that's basically a nothing play, even after the rules changes. But can you get him chances on punt returns? Can you get him chances on the ground? Can you get him chances with in the pass catching game, especially on those tunnel screens?
Well, now it leads us into the conversation, and I'll put the beautiful picture back up from one Andrew Mason, because there you go. It's the Cooper Kupp conversation, Mase. You and I agree on this, and I think you have a little mini rant coming. So through your pain that you push through, and I appreciate you for playing injured, brother, let's get that rant about Cooper Kupp.
Hey, sometimes when I see trade rumors, especially in the NFL and the NBA, it's like, boy, I would have loved that player 4 years ago or 6 years ago or 7 years ago. But you have to think of what that player is right now. Cooper Kupp, at this point, is a distressed asset. There's a reason the Rams are moving on from him. Bad contract and production that isn't matching the contract. He's missed 18 games over the last 3 years. He's going to be 32 years of age this year. When he does play, his yardage per game has dropped from 115 back in that magnum opus season of 2021 to 59 yards per game this past year. I would be interested in Cooper Kupp, but not for very much and not without a massive restructure. I think anything more than $8 to $10 million a year for Cooper Kupp is an overpay. So if the Rams cut him, or if they say, hey, we'll give him to you for a 7th round pick, and we're going to assume and we're going to take on a decent chunk of the contract, and we'll leave you with an $8 to $10 million cap figure, I say sign me up. But if you can't get that kind of deal, move on. Because in general, I'm more interested in developing the next Cooper Kupp. and finding that guy. And I think Sean Payton, talking about receiver maybe not being as big of a need as others might think it is, I think Sean Payton's thinking that way as well, that he can find those types of guys from what he has on hand.
Right. We haven't seen the best of Troy Franklin. We haven't seen the best of Devon Vele. We haven't seen the best even of Marvin Mims as he continues to develop Mase. So the Kupp thing is more sports radio-ish.
Yeah.
Although we have struck it down on Dover and Cecil, not the other shows. I'll throw stones at those guys. Those guys are pumping it up. Like Stoke was saying, give up a 3rd-round pick for Cooper Kupp.
Oh,
I came in hot today. I came in hot, brother. I was like, that's the worst idea of all time.
It's a terrible idea. I think the thing is, I called it on social media shiny object syndrome. Like, you look at this player who was big a few years ago, like, oh, we got to get him. We got to get a name. Give me a name. Give me a name. No. You know what you should do? You know what good organizations do? Good organizations draft and develop and make the names. They don't go trying to pluck just pluck somebody else who happens to be available. And it's available for a reason. Like, as Mike McGlinchey said, teams let players go for reasons, right? Mm-hmm. He said that in the locker room. Of course, it's funny that Mike says that because he was let go by the 49ers and went into free agency. But I think there's a lot of self-awareness there on Mike McGlinchey's part. But he's right. When a player is on the market, they're on the market for a reason. Even if you look on the surface and say, oh, wow. And I think with Cooper Kupp, everyone thinks back to the Super Bowl the Rams won 3 years ago, and they're like, oh, wow, you're going to get that. That guy's not walking through that door. It's a different guy now. It's a guy who's dealt with some injuries. It's a guy, if you watch the film, doesn't get separation as consistently as he used to. Right. And here's another thing. When Sean Payton was talking earlier today, he referenced when he was down in Cabo last week and he was hanging out with Sean McVay. Okay? I don't think I think if they're talking and they're talking about Cooper Kupp, I don't know that Sean Payton is emerging from that thinking, I got to get me some Cooper Kupp. Let someone else do that, because I feel like what's going to happen is the Rams are trying to get another team take on as much of that contract as possible. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a team out there who's paying for services rendered to the Rams, and they're not going to get that level of production when they get him in their thing. And I feel, again, too many people are suffering from shiny object syndrome. Just stop it. Focus on the players you have, developing them, coaching them up, making them better. Besides which, from the top down, the Broncos want to be a draft and develop organization. I've said that before. I'll say it again. That's their goal. What you saw a couple years ago in free agency, they made the big splash. That was only because they lacked draft capital. What you are going to see more and more is this team wanting to draft and develop its own and then re-sign its own. The Broncos have already done a lot of their shopping because they re-signed Jonathan Cooper and they re-signed Pat Surtain and they re-signed Quinn Miners and they re-signed Garrett Bowles. That was the big thrust of their shopping. Getting that core, keeping it together.
Yep.
And growing from there, growing together.
Having plenty of shared moments.
Am I going off?
I like that. Moments. People talking about Mega Mase rant. I like that. You know who picks up Cooper Kupp now? The Jaguars.
Yeah.
All apologies to our friends. We both have friends on that staff, but it's like that's a Jacksonville move. Oh, it ended Cooper Kupp. All right. So I would way rather get Chris Godwin, who you don't have to trade for. And he's coming back from injury, but he's younger. And honestly, Mase, I just think he's better. He's better at this point in his career. You're not getting Cooper Kupp from 4 years ago now.
I could be sold on rolling the dice on Chris Godwin. I think there's more in the tank there anyway. And also with injuries, you're talking about the one big injury. It's actually more of a concern when they're missing a substantial amount of time 3 years in a row and they're getting into their 30s. That's when you start saying, okay, there's a pattern here.
Did you see what Jason said in our chat room?
No, what? Oh, gosh. Yeah. I'm standing up for my rights as a consumer.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I need, there you go. I need he has the baseball bat. He kind of hits it like my rights as a consumer.
Yeah, that's right. That is correct.
Yes. Should I go in a Whammy Burger and see if I can get whammy burger with fries and then see how it doesn't look like the picture?
I gotta watch that movie again. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
Oh gosh.
You
What's
feel
up
better,
with
Mace?
the,
You feeling good?
I do. What's up with the
Good.
one black glove? Okay. Okay, here's the injury story here. I mean, so I've got, sometimes you see me wearing this
The brace.
brace here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday I reached the point of non-functionality. I'm going to have carpal tunnel surgery, okay? I reached the point of non-functionality, the point where I could not type without being in excruciating pain. So thus, I have spent a good portion of today getting to an urgent care clinic, waiting, being in the office, then going, getting a prescription to hopefully reduce the swelling and all that. And, you know, if I'm okay doing this show, I'm about to test it and actually try to type a story here later on. So that's what I'm worried about. That's where I am right now. So unfortunately, this was not I did not expect to spend a Wednesday at Super Bowl week in the doctor's office, but such is life. I've been muddling through with issues here for a while, and I think I finally got to a point. It finally reached a point where I can't muddle through anymore. It was, you you power through. So there's probably a point coming in this off season where I'm on the injured list for a couple of weeks. I can probably do this show, but I'm not going to be able to type while I recover from whatever I have to have here. So
right.
Anyway, but yeah, that's the
glove story.
Yes.
All right, Mace. Well, let's leave him with that. And with that, we'll bid you adieu. Got a special edition of OBT2. Andrew Mason and special guest Aaron Schatz, ESPN, Football Outsiders. You remember him.
FTN Fantasy now.
FTN Fantasy now.
FTN Fantasy.
Yep. One of our favorites, one of our dear friends. So special OBT2 coming up tonight right here on YouTube. Mace, you want me to throw that out on your Twitter as well, same time?
Yeah, throw that out on my Twitter, on my X, whatever it is now.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some interesting stuff. Like I said, there's some things that he says that are going to surprise you. We talked a little about Bo Nix, the rookie class. In his analytics, Broncos had the 7th most productive rookie class this past year. Where they go from here and what they can do to take the next step. He seemed pretty optimistic about what he's seen from the Broncos and where they can go, especially because of the numbers, as we often discuss the numbers on the offensive line. And that was something he got into as well. So check that out tonight, and we'll have more knock on wood here, a knock on this wood table, although there's a table skirt on top of it. Hopefully we'll be hearing from Tyler Warren coming by this spot tomorrow. That's the plan. We're working on that. We're efforting that. And so that'd be a big get. We'll also be going up to the Fox Sports availability and chatting with a lot of their people about Sean Payton and the Broncos and what they saw from Bo Nix. So we got plenty more to come here. We'll even hear from Ed McCaffrey, former Bronco, coming up on Friday.
Yeah, hearing from Ed. We love hearing that. So we are here for you. But Mace, before we're out of here, how can the folks help us out on YouTube? Careful with that arm. Comment.
Share.
Subscribe.
Ouch. And hit that notification bell.
Gentle ding. So that you
never
miss a vid. That's right. Ay caramba. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Amy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Would you please stay frosty?